Hello and welcome to Any Means Necessary, the information design podcast where we explore past and present design problems by any means necessary. My name is Shadi Swaydan, and today I'm joined by my fellow classmates.
Hi, I'm April.
Hi, I'm Martha.
Hi, I'm Caitlin.
Hey, Kurt's here for another one.
Hi, I'm Laura.
I'm Wyatt.
Awesome, and today we'll be discussing our problems, experiences, and tips relating to virtual and augmented reality, including any barriers, concerns, and opportunities surrounding this realm. Before we begin, we'd like to remind everyone listening that we are no way experts on the topics being discussed, but rather speak on our personal and collective experiences in the information design program at Mount Royal University and beyond. With that being said, I guess I'll start us off for today. So it is tradition in these podcasts to introduce the main presenter of the night, so allow me to reintroduce myself. I am Shadi. I am a fourth-year information design student at Mount Royal University. I have graphic design experience, several freelance experiences, and have recently obtained and now co-own a social media marketing company called Connect. Other than that, and through this pandemic, I spend my free time away from school playing video games, playing with my dog, and getting out for bike rides when I can. However, today I thought it would be an interesting topic we could all speak about is the growing realm of the virtual and augmented reality. For those of you that are unfamiliar with these terms, virtual reality is essentially a computer-generated simulation of a 3D environment that can be interacted with. This may be in the form of a video game or a collaboration environment. It is steadily growing as a market and is now extremely accessible for the use and purchase. It is actually estimated that there was about 300 million VR users worldwide in 2020. As far as augmented reality goes, on the other hand, is something that is not as accessible and is extremely expensive and is definitely on the newer scale for sure. Augmented reality is basically when you take virtual elements and layer them on top of the real world, providing a sort of composite view. For example, you could take Snapchat or Instagram. When you put a filter on someone's face, you're actually using augmented reality. It's really just that layering over the real world. So as far as school goes, I don't think we've had too many interactions with VR and AR, except for Brad's COMM 2670, Tools for Information Designers 2, where we had the opportunity to try the Microsoft HoloLens, an AR mixed reality headset. Other than that, I believe we have the Experience Lab at the MRU Library, which is a research and testing ground for faculty and students interested in exploring the educational potential of existing VR experiences. So to start today, I was just honestly interested to see if you guys had any experiences with VR, AR in your own personal, professional, and educational lives. So if you have any experiences, feel free to share. We can start from there.
I suppose it's me that's going to talk about this right away. I'm absolutely an avid fan of the technology in general. Like again, I remember way back when virtual reality was introduced, computers were barely pushing polygons at the time, right? And now we have these robust systems where I can, shoot at zombies or do collaborative work like we did in our Gravity Sketch video, Shadi, where we were, learning how that was used as a learning tool. So, currently I'm actually employed at a company that uses this software tool called Verbella, and we actually walk around in a 3D space. It's really just kind of like a video game almost, and everyone kind of makes that same comment. And I have a little virtual desk that I sit in, and of course I mic in and talk to people, things like that. It does have the option for me to actually sit there in a virtual reality space if I have a supported headset, so to speak, right? And it's neat to see how things have kind of, I guess, transpired over the last, say, decade. And now, I have like a couple headsets in my house where, I either play a video game or entertained. I can sit in the movie theater. Shadi, I know you have a very similar headset where we can actually just sit together and play ping pong together, which is really neat, and it's really special, especially inside of this pandemic situation where even if you want to get a little exercise, you can chop bricks to music and stuff like that and get a little sweat on, which is pretty fun, So I'm really clearly very excited about the space and where it could go or lead in the next decade. Prior to our segment today, I was kind of trying to introduce to everybody that we may soon very much have no reason to buy computer monitors anymore. You could have a whole workspace or a workstation in anywhere you go with whatever triple monitor if you wanted or whatever else, right? Simulations everywhere, push and pull 3D objects for simulations, and present that way. So again, all I wanted to say, or talk about it, the intro part here is my enthusiasm for the technology.
And that also segues to a lot of possible issues that AR and VR can introduce. I mean, even simple things like Snapchat filters to Instagram filters already gives a bit of I guess, depend on the severity of trust issues to possible identity crisis that certain individuals would have. Issues such as, heightened low self-esteem because, hey, I prefer the way I look on the filter rather than me not having a filter, So, I mean, while it's a very exciting and new technology that a lot of us, has been anticipated and, is definitely very useful in like so many ways. Like, for example, the IKEA augmented reality where you can kind of view your room, and it's like, if I put a chair here, how would the place look, and that's very useful for planning your interior space and all. But then there's also other barriers and other issues, such as the psychological and social impacts. So I don't know, what do you guys think?
Ooh, Arthur, way to pop my enthusiasm bubble with the negative sides. And I'm kind of semi-joking because you really bring up some good points. Like there are some negative aspects to any new technology. I mean, I remember being very excited about the iPhone when it first launched, and now we're having a lot of conversations as to the dangers and the problems in people's ordinary lives, right?
I wouldn't say it's so much as in like popping the bubble. I mean, yes, it is technically, but it's more of also like, it's a very new matter. In the same logic that social media and the internet, evolved so fast that it's very hard to regulate. It's very hard to kind of assess the possible dangers and the possible whatever. And the only reason why, I like to bring this up in any conversation is kind of like, because potentially, who knows, Kirk might be the next AR VR company, owner, spearheading like a huge AR VR, program. But it's always nice to kind of like, hey, as we are evolving, as we are creating more and more apps within AR and VR, which is still a very big, unknown in how much potential could it have, whether is it positive or negative. It's always good to consider like certain things that this introduction to this technology might have, so that we can properly evolve and properly integrate and introduce this technology to the public, so to kind of like facilitate a safe introduction of, hey, this is AR, rather than for example, when the internet and social media was introduced, now everybody's data is all over the place. Nobody know where your data is, who takes your data, and everything like that, right? So that's just my perspective. So yeah.
Well, you bring up a good point. Actually, there's an extremely useful article written by Ben Kenwright, if I'm saying that correct, on the ethical challenges and dangers of VR. We're going to stick to VR a little bit, I'm guessing here, because we're probably more familiar with VR. However, he states that there's a need for investigation. So currently, there's a lack of information on short and long-term physiological impacts of VR. As Arthur was saying, there's a lot of different things we have to take into account here. I think, some people may not feel themselves or want to, maybe they project themselves as something else because they do look better with a filter on their face, for example. That's more of an AR thing. But even VR, like a short-term thing that I noticed, I just got my Oculus headset and I wasn't sure. I kind of just hopped right into it. I didn't do any research, or I kind of was really excited, wanted to hop in, play some video games. But one thing I noticed was obviously, as a new experience will be, it's very addicting off the bat. And so I was probably on the headset for probably 5 hours, 6 hours straight. And one of the things that I noticed when I got off is I was looking at my phone and I actually couldn't read anything on my phone. My eyes were like completely discombobulated. Like it was actually a weird experience. It didn't last very long, but it just kind of brought a concern, as I was like, and maybe it has to do with the quality of headset as well. I mean, Oculus is a good headset as a consumer headset, but there are very, very high-end headsets that you can buy that might have different pixels. And but I that was one of the first things that I noticed as well. And who knows, as Ben was saying, there's not a lot of information on all of this stuff and who's actually using VR, and there's many questions related to this kind of issue, right?
Yeah, Shadi, I completely relate to that. Like, you kind of lose your sense of time and awareness. I have an Oculus as well. And the first time I used it, it was the same boat. I was on there for like 4 hours, just like playing games. And, you take the headset off and you're like, oh my God, like I'm an actual person on Earth with like responsibilities that I have to go take care of. You know what I mean? It's like it really removes you from the space that you're in. The first time I ever tried VR, I was really hesitant. It was at Mount Royal in the library through one of our classes with Brad. And there's like a lot of people, and I was like a little bit self-conscious, maybe didn't want to try it out while like 30 people watched me. But once you get going, it like completely removes you from where you actually are. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a big thing actually. One of the things that has come to my concern actually is there was a article that I read about in Richard's class, COMM 3500, and it was by an author called Neil Postman. I think the article was called "Amusing Ourselves to Death." And one thing he talks about, which I think is a big problem, not just with VR, but in technology in general, is the fact that we kind of use it to entertain ourselves, and it kind of disdains this kind of ideal world where we take things seriously, and it kind of promotes an escapist realm in my eyes. So like you said, you're not really in that environment anymore, you're taken completely out of it, right? And so if things are, in my eyes, like the phone for one thing is, social media is one thing, you can escape and get away from reality for a bit by watching some YouTube or watching some videos on Instagram or TikTok. But now with virtual reality, for example, you can completely leave the world. You can enter a completely different world and just make it your own reality, right? And so what does that kind of have to say towards like this escapist kind of realm we're going towards, and how can we kind of make it better in a sense? How can we make sure that people aren't using it as an escapist entertainment kind of realm while they enjoy themselves, obviously?
Yeah, that's a very good point, because I mean, there's been a lot of talk, especially since social media has only been introduced over the past decade, since like 2010, 2009, 2008, around there. I mean, if you consider like Friendster, MySpace, all that, you know, and ever since then, a lot of people are like, oh, well, with the introduction of social media, it kind of like, there's this sudden disconnection with so many people in the real world and their social media world. It's kind of like, oh, well, they appear a certain way on social media, but in real life, in reality, they're different. It's like, I'm happy here, I'm not really actually happy, but I want to put it out there. So yes, you do have a point with the escapist kind of thing, which is why I kind of mentioned, I think AR and VR definitely very useful, but definitely I feel like, especially with VR, there needs to be a very serious facilitation to the introduction of this technology as it gets, kind of like integrated to the general public.
I see what you mean about like the disconnect from, actual like person to person relationships. But at the same time, it's also another interesting way to connect with people, just to play devil's advocate here. It's especially during the pandemic when we can't be in a physical space with another person, a collaborative VR app is a really cool way that you can feel connected to your friends or your family, instead of just doing, because we all sit through enough video calls through school. It's just a little bit more a fun way to connect as well.
Yeah, I'd
Well,
agree with that. It's just like the same kind of realm as like online chats with like playing video games and stuff and like chatting there. It's basically like kind of like the same space. So it's nothing new in that sense, but it's just another level.
Yeah, it's like an elevated version of like a Xbox Live.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, especially because of the pandemic, a lot of places, like the companies that we kind of did our project for in Kelsey's class, are looking into more AR VR modes of, teaching or training their clients or even their company workers. So it kind of just kind of opened up a new world where maybe they weren't necessarily going to look into things like that before, but now they kind of are more than ever, and that kind of just speeds up the process of going into more AR, VR types of ways of doing things.
Have you been interested in seeing how they've been implementing it at WestJet? So I don't know, as soon as I hear WestJet VR, I immediately think about training pilots or something like that through the system.
Well, we did like a training AR VR thing for WestJet as part of our project for Kelsey's, and Shadi was part of that as well. And we just prototyped, like they were trying to train their PSAs, I believe, so just their priority service agents. And so we kind of did a thing where you would work with, I don't remember what, like, what is it called? Application it was that we used, but it was kind of just like so they can work from home and work through like a training scenarios, where they don't have to go into WestJet and learn there. Just kind of simulation type ideas.
Yeah, I believe it was. I could be wrong, but it was there was the Westjet Lounge that they introduced at the Calgary airport, and they were trying to learn how to integrate PSA's training, which is very in hands-on, like in the environment. You're dealing with clients at that desk, admitting them into the lounge, taking their flight details, admitting them into the flight. There's a bunch of stuff you have to serve them in the lounge as well. And so they wanted to find a way to kind of train their new PSAs that they would hire in a virtual space without actually having them in that space because of, well, the pandemic right now. A lot of companies are trying to go through this kind of thing. And so it was very interesting and they enjoyed it. And so we kind of introduced, like as far as cleaning goes, we introduced a kind of a virtual space that looked like the lounge and kind of touch points and like exclamation marks over where cleaning supplies would be kept, or because obviously during a pandemic, you want to make sure everything's clean constantly. Just little things like that. And I haven't actually touched base with them, but I hope they're actually integrating some stuff like that. That'd be really cool. I think every company in general should kind of get into this VR, AR kind of thing, because it really does help training, for example. It's a big aspect you can use that kind of thing for. But there's so many different ways that you can kind of integrate your entire company into a virtual or augmented reality setting. And so I'm excited to see where companies go with this as well. And I hope that maybe that's where we integrate our platform from. Maybe all these companies want to come onto us and we have to kind of design this virtual world for them to present their business in, right? And so maybe that's where we come in as designers.
Well, on that aspect, developing a rule set on, through technical writing and things like that, I think those assets perhaps exist already. And maybe I'm just throwing in a challenge in the loop where, no one's really going to read an instruction set to, immerse themselves inside of a VR, for example, right? Again, Shadi, I'm sure the first thing you did was read the instruction manual on your new Oculus kit, right?
100%. I don't mess around with that. That was the first thing I did.
Oh, interesting. I was expecting you to say no. All I wanted to do was go inside there and shoot zombies,
I would say I'm different in that sense. I mean, I got it for Christmas and I was super excited, but I take care of my stuff, right? I can imagine, like a kid, like a 14-year-old, 12-year-old kid getting a brand new headset is just going to throw that thing on, not caring, right? I'm a little different in that, and I will admit to that. But yeah, I read the instructions a little bit.
Yeah, but it's kind of like what you said, Kurt, earlier with the UX and UI possibilities in this, because then as information designers, people. See, you already identified a very obvious problem. People aren't going to read the manual. So therefore, on a UX and UI approach, as an information designer, you're like, okay, why not let's include these little, hey, it's been 2 hours, you should take a break inside the interface, inside the virtual reality, so, because they can't avoid that. It's there in their face, So definitely that opens up even more like opportunities, jobs, and just shows how important information design kind of plays in it in terms of UX, UI, technical writing, and all kinds of ways to kind of like find these little issues that we can avoid through greater understanding.
And
Yeah, I know what you mean, Arthur, like when you said people aren't reading the manuals, but I'm on Shoddy's team. I also like thoroughly read the little booklet that it comes with. Their product design and package design is immaculate. Like it comes in this cute little box. It like slides in and the little plug-in is in there, and it was really pleasing to open. And yeah, I read the thing cover to cover, because I didn't want to mess up my equipment. I wanted to know how to use it. And then, my info nerd in me, of course, I'm going to read a manual. But it's interesting. I don't know the actual data as to like how many people are reading them.
Yeah, if I'm taking anything, so my experience is completely different. Maybe I'm just a big kid at heart, because maybe I am that 14-year-old brain shoddy that you mentioned earlier. Like, I just want to jump in there and start playing. And it's interesting to actually hear that your experiences were uh, absolutely completely different to mine or whatever. But if I'm taking anything from, say, Brian's information design, or sorry, information architecture class, it'd probably be just visual hierarchy. I want to go in there, poke, prod, learn through. I guess it would be an experiential learn for me, and then that's probably where we start, a segue into Kelsey's learning theories and things like that. And so maybe by applying some, learning theory thoughts into the UX of visual hierarchy, mention of a blinking button, Arthur, for example, press me, press me. People can actually learn and adapt to the system by actually experiencing it.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring up the point of like it's interesting to see like where marketing and advertisement is gonna go with the development of AR and VR, and like I have no idea what the future holds for that and what to expect, but it's definitely gonna be like a unique and a very experiential shift to like things popping out at you, or like things on your phone, like, or whatever, with like Google Glasses or whatever it is, um, to be more like in your face and popping out and interactive. It's going to be weird to see how things kind of change with like advertisements on a bus or on the street or whatever.
I think for the foreseeable future, we're going to kind of see our smartphones kind of evolve into that sphere, right? So whatever behaviors we have, so you're talking on the marketing aspect of whatever, say roaming the halls of a mall, and you have whatever the Google glasses on, or Apple glasses coming down the pipeline, right? So if I'm walking around Market Mall, for example, my favorite store, it's got an Apple store. Uh, I'm walking by, and all of a sudden I'll have all these advertisements. Hey, come buy a MacBook, pop when I'm near the store or in the vicinity or something like that. Much like they do now on the smartphone. I get these kind of, alerts like, hey, come on in and take a look at the Apple speakers or whatever, when I'm nearby an Apple store. And that can happen for other outlets as well. Like, hey, we got a sale on jeans, or, come get a prescription lens, or a free eye test or whatever, right? Things like that. And people will be kind of alerted to that on their smartphones. But now it's going to be more, I suppose, experiential or visual.
Yeah, I just remember like Brad's class where he was showing us like hyper reality like advertisements in like Japan and stuff, where it's like billboards, and like even like he showed us like that full grocery store or whatever that was like completely run as like a AR storefront, essentially, where like you would literally just like go through and pick items, and they weren't actually there, but like you're in a different space, whatever, and then it just gets put into like a cart in like some back room, and then you just pick it up and leave. That was really weird.
I think it's interesting too, sort of how marketing is going to use like AR and VR, because like if you think about it, I read this article about how people's attention span like from 2000 until now has deteriorated from like 12 seconds to 8 seconds. So it's interesting like how VR and AR is gonna sort of try to, I guess, include more immersive and visual forms of storytelling to like sort of capture people's attention in the
in this sort of overloading of, I guess, information that we have to deal with today. So yeah, I think that's super cool how the future is gonna look for that.
That's it. Kind of made me think of even the travel industry, Laura, because I hooked up my Oculus to my PC. You have to do it through that mechanism right now until they maybe release a version for the portable unit. But I could fly around Google Earth, and it's crazy actually. I mean, I'm sure everyone's probably experienced Google Earth on their laptops or whatever on their phone. And if you pinch and zoom or whatever, you can kind of go in there and, oh, here's the Eiffel Tower, or there's whatever, the Empire State Building, things like that. Um, in VR space, it takes those three renderings, I guess, of the Google Earth app, and you can actually walk down the street of New York, for example. I revisited some of the places I went on some of my travels, like Italy or Australia and things like that. And it's eerie how close it is. I mean, yes, everything's very, I hope everyone understands what I mean by low polygon count at this stage. But where that space can evolve into in the next short-term future really is freaky. So, especially with the pandemic and things like that, if I wanted to, whatever, re-experience grandma's house, I could be flown there right away and experience her block and whatever, have a great time in that environment, which is really interesting.
So it's obvious that, like, the implications and the opportunities to which, VR and AR can reach are endless. We can use it for a lot of different things. So it kind of takes us back, as information designers. I remember being told constantly in class that, we're going to be the designers of the future. We're different than everyone else in a sense. And I know a lot of that has to do with the empathy and kind of the moral things that we were taught in class. Actually, one of the main barriers is ethical regulations in VR right now. So as VR developers and manufacturers pursue significantly different design pathways, it makes it more difficult for regulators to keep up and develop rules and regulatory standards for safety, for example. But not just that, so if, as information designers, we kind of have to create this new world, kind of have to set the bar high by creating ethical and empathetical worlds of realities in a sense. So it's interesting to kind of depict and see how we can do that. I'm interested to see if you guys have any more examples of how we could kind of include something like that. For example, like, I don't know if we would want to build on something such as Oculus. Oculus was actually taken over by Facebook, and Facebook does a lot of, data information on people and how they move. And I don't know if that's a very big ethical. I know the necessity of something as big as that data, would suggest, but I don't know if that's something that we'd want to contain. Would we have to build on a different platform entirely, create a different world that's separate from that kind of realm, or would we kind of continue on the platforms that we're given right now? I know that AR, for example, if as far as AR goes, Google has the HoloLens, and you can actually get a HoloLens kit, I think, and you can actually build on it as well. But it kind of brings a good question. If we're going to start building this world, what are we going to do it on? What kind of mediums and what kind of gadgets do we have accessible to us already, right?
On that note, that really starts to make you think deep. And I don't know. I mean, the good thing is that there's no limitation, right? And then concerning on ethics, the bad thing is that there's no limitation, right? And so it's kind of that spectrum in between. Where do you want to coexist in that environment, right? And one thing I know, or what I'm proud of as an information designer, is that we have, I don't know, I think I'm just maybe proud of us that we kind of are well absorbed into the ethical approach to things, right? And I suppose maybe it's hard for me to uh, concern myself of the whatever evil doings that can be done in this environment, because I'm so fixated on the limitless possibility, right? But yeah, I don't know. I mean, what is it? Star Wars? I don't know where the quote comes from. Where Spider-Man, that's what it is. With great power comes great responsibility. To quote a comic book, but there's a lot of truth to that. And I think throughout our program, I mean, we stick to that with our poster designs, with our UX design, with our usability analysis, with our whatever ethnographic observation charts that we fill in and all that sort of stuff. We kind of stick to a high ethical or moral standard, right? And knowing that that can be leveraged or exploited. I remember when Facebook was fun. You'd go on there, hey grandma, check it out. You're across the country and I'm in the backyard with whatever kids in a pool and we're having a barbecue. And she could see that and enjoy it and put a smile on her face. But now that price is paid with your personal user data and your data, your location tracking, and so yeah, there's a high danger for sure in the virtual space because again, I was talking earlier that it's tracking your hands, it's tracking your movement, it's just tracking your precise environment where you are. And I put a headset on. Now Google knows I have whatever a triple monitor set up with inside of my office on the second floor, which is kind of creepy, right? What are they doing with that data?
Yes, and that's definitely a very important point because also, as mentioned earlier, as information designers, the reason why information design came around is because right now there was a sudden influx and saturation of overload, as you can say, of information in the world all of a sudden once the internet arrived. And as the internet kind of evolved, developed, grew on its own, you need information designers who are able to see above the mess, above the kind of like, I guess you can look at it metaphorically, like everybody's in the river swimming, but as information designers, we are the ones who can go into the river and go out of the river and still be able to see which direction the river is going. So we're able to see the bigger picture. We're able to go into, the thick of things and still be aware of what's happening in that sense. So I think it brings up a very good point, with the ethical regulations, the risk, the desensitization that, AR and VR possibly can go. Because right now, if you think about it, with the sudden introduction to, hey, AR and VR is a thing, now there is a, more and more people starting to realize the need to balance technology and being human. A lot of people kind of say it like, right now our handphones technically are an extension of who we are, right? We cannot go anywhere without them, we cannot live without them, and it's essential. If I get lost, I need to call Kirk. Hey, I'm lost, can you help me? I don't know where I am. Send Google location. And so it's good and it's bad in a lot of ways too. So as we progress in this conversation, I think it becomes clearer and clearer how the barriers and the issues that AR and VR introduce, how important information designers are as people who can, like I said earlier, step into the river, be in the thick of things where technology and all this information is, and be able to step out of the river, away from all this technology overload and information overload, and still be able to, I can see the bigger picture. And in a way, it's kind of like a responsibility we have with the power we're given through, understanding, realization of how everything really works, to kind of, like I said earlier, facilitate proper introduction and integrate it slowly, properly to the public so that, nothing like Facebook happens again. Possibly. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, and that's that's basically the main reason why I brought this this point up and this issue, this barrier that we're facing. Because let's face it, if Facebook owns something virtual reality wise, or maybe Apple in this sense, Kirk was talking about earlier how Apple is getting their hands onto VR and AR, it's going to be hard to kind of set course into a more information designer, like ethical kind of way from what they're used to and what they actually want, right? Who knows if their goals behind VR and AR are actually just to get data from how people are moving and just to get more information on people, right? And that's why I brought up the idea of maybe we have to start our own platform, more in the sense of maybe, yeah, we can have like video games, for example, on there. I think that'd be really cool, something that we could all build together. That'd be fun, right? But also we are building this new world. We are going to have to be at the forefront of it. And like you said, great power comes great responsibility. So are we going to have to create a new kind of medium for us to do this in, right? But it seems like we have to set the bar high. It seems like we have to increase awareness of VR and AR, just kind of implement it and facilitate it into society in a way that people are comfortable with, and kind of increase trust and understanding between information designers creating this world for people, right? We want people to trust us. We want people to know that we are ethical and in our practices and empathetic towards the world. And so I think that's an important step when creating and kind of putting ourselves into that position of, making this virtual and augmented world that we're going into.
Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree, because that's the whole point of why, whenever people are like, are you a graphic designer? Are you a designer? Are you a marketing person? What are you? So we're information designers, but what is it exactly? Well, compared to other, disciplines, I guess you can mention, information designers, utmost and foremost are ethical designers who understand technology and information really well to be able to disseminate the correct and proper information in an ethical manner to guide the general public in using, in this very rapidly advancing world. Technology and everything is advancing so fast to the point that governments also cannot keep up, and that's why there's like certain, only a few years ago, then there was regulations on, oh, technically you can't fly your drones here and there and here and there. Well, some don't make sense, but it's because a lot of people really don't understand. So through the this topic of AR and VR, it's kind of funny how it re-emphasizes, hey, you're an information designer, be proud that you're one, because there's a lot of things that we can do based on just purely what we understand and how we can see things through our eyes.
Well, and this is precisely why I'm excited personally. I just think it's got so much untapped potential. Like I again, my Google Earth. I can't wait. Like Google Earth example that I brought up. I can't wait till it's higher fidelity. I can really feel like I'm back in New York or whatever on that block that I traveled, or the route I took to Times Square and things like that, and experience it in that sense. And the whole ethical stance. I mean, I think it almost comes pre-framed with the excitement, with the initiative to jump in there and do something new and exciting that no one's ever really experienced before. And I think again, I just keep talking about the potential, and but yeah, I don't know. I mean, we always talk about the barriers and the problems that could arise and the issues, and it needs to be responsible in the end, I suppose. And I just, I don't know. All I can see is the untapped potential at this point. I don't know where I'm going with this point, but I'm just looking forward to how it'll change, say, education. We've been talking about it in pods in my previous place of employment, how we're going to train people how to run or use dangerous equipment, for example. And I remember when simulations or computer simulators for truck drivers or something like that was a controversial topic, and now I almost feel like it's the norm. And so, what are we going to experience in that norm? I really hope we are the ones responsible for designing that.
With that being said, looks like we are out of time for today, but thank you all for participating, and thank you all at home for tuning in today. We hope you've enjoyed and learned about how to become the best designer you can be. Today we touched base on issues and concerns revolving augmented and virtual reality, the empathetical and ethical pursuits of augmented and virtual reality, and as well as our roles as information designers in this new world creation. Sadly, this will be our last podcast. So on behalf of all of us at the Any Means Necessary podcast group, we want to thank you all for tuning in every week, and we hope you have learned, gained insight, and will use this in your professional careers, of course, by any means necessary. Thank you.